Welcome back to another episode of the Ear Hustling Podcast. This is season 4, episode 9. This is a episode that I've been really excited about. It's about privilege and allyship. What does it mean? We have a very special guest on the show today, one of my good friends, Latoya Holman. She will be joining us talking about allyship. Prince, you could bring her on.
All right, perfect.
Hello.
Hi, Latoya.
Hi.
Hello, hello.
Hello. Good
So
to see everyone.
Latoya is like a rock star here in the universe. She's totally amazing. We're gonna just jump right into the show, but I do want to go over her brief bio. I could talk about her accomplishments for an hour, but just a few things. She's a Women's Hall of Famer here in Las Vegas. I don't know if this is still current or not, but board member with the Girl Scouts and executive committee member with the NAACP.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I did serve on the executive committee of the NAACP, and I am a current member of the board of directors for the Girl Scouts of Southern Nevada. Yes.
Awesome. She's board of governor with the HRC Foundation. It's the largest LGBTQ political lobbying organization within the United States. I've talked about multiple times on the show about my involvement with the Black Girl Scholarship, and Latoya is the brains behind that. She's the one who's brought together myself as well as 39 other incredible African American women who support, encourage, help fundraise, and give out scholarships to African American high school girls every year.
Mhm.
What else can I say about her? She's Chief Development Officer for the Public Education Foundation. I don't know much about schooling around the country, but here in Nevada, teachers have to supply like a lot of the supplies in the classroom. So the
That's
Public
true.
Education Foundation has a teacher superstore, which provides free and low cost supplies for teachers, and has also provided nearly $7 million in scholarships every year.
Yeah,
And
that's pretty good, Soleil.
Yeah,
It's a
and
lot of
her,
information.
her greatest accomplishment is she's my sister friend. She's my
That's right.
girl. So she's totally amazing. So thank you again for being on the show.
yes, thank you. Thank you. This is awesome. I think this is great because normally we do have a couple more people on this show, but it sounds like you have enough accomplishments and personality to fill the shoes for everyone.
Well,
Yes.
thanks to both of you. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. It's such a pleasure to be here and to talk about a topic that is so incredibly personal to me.
Mm.
So I'm an open book for you today.
Awesome. So let's get started. We're talking about allyship. So, how do you personally define allyship, and
Yeah.
what sparked your journey in allyship?
Oh, such a great question. You know, in its simplest form, I think allyship can be elements of allyship can be kindness and showing empathy towards other people, but in a more detailed way that stays away from the performative side of allyship is more about identifying marginal groups of people and aligning with them, taking plenty of time to listen to them and learn, really learn from them. I think that the other piece to allyship is yielding to that group and the needs of that group to help them be a fully actualized segment of our community. And to me, that requires vulnerability and bravery. And I would say that that is what allyship means to me. To answer your second question is, how did I get into this? How did I get on this allyship journey? And it actually is a little bit of a story, so I'm happy to share it. I think Soleil knows some of the story. I was actually invited to a private dinner with some friends They happened to be, there was majority of gay men in the room, and they invited me to this dinner, and they said there was someone that they really wanted me to meet. And I was so proud to go. And so I went to this dinner. I had just joined the steering committee of the Human Rights Campaign. And the steering committee is really the local kind of managing board that really guides the local work of the Human Rights Campaign.
Mhm.
Proud to say that Soleil is a member of that leadership board. And I had just joined this board. And to be fair, Prince and Soleil, like I didn't really know what my value was. Why was I chosen or asked to serve on this board? I was a straight girl.
Mhm.
Um, I had very few gay friends at the time, but I always had that moral center that was completely rooted in love. And so when people ask me, will you join on the steering committee? I thought, sure. It was my first time being asked to serve on some sort of a managing committee or board. And so I accepted. Well, I go to this dinner and it's the steering committee that's there. And I'm, again, remember, I don't really know what my value is, but I'm here with my friends. And so, like when you're in a group of people and you can tell that someone there is very important because
Yeah.
they're like, is she okay? Does she need some more wine? And are too many people talking to her? It was like just kind of bustling around this one woman that they said they wanted me to meet. And so I'm like, who is this lady? Like what? Who is this very fancy, important person that I know nothing about? And so this very shy woman walked over to me and sat down next to me, and everyone in the room is like, oh my god, she's coming over to her, what are they going to talk about, right? And I'm just like looking at everybody kind of weird, and she was so kind but very shy, and she said, may I tell you about my son? And I said, of course you can. Like, this is a woman saying she wants to tell me about her kid. I'm like, absolutely. And she said, I'd like to tell you about my son, Matthew. And she introduced herself as Judy Shepherd. And
Oh yeah.
I did not know what happened to Matthew Shepherd. I did not realize that they had tortured this man, this boy. He was so young. Um, right around the same time as the dragging of James Byrd Jr. And they had beaten him and choked him
Mhm.
and tortured him, and they left him hanging to die on a fence out in the wilderness, out in Laramie, Wyoming. And Matthew survived that for a number of days. And then he was rescued by an ally and brought to the hospital where he remained kind of on life support until he expired. And Matthew was murdered by bigots. He was murdered by homophobes, using the gay panic defense. And it was in that moment that this woman, this mother, was painstakingly, detail by detail, telling me what happened to her baby, that I was brought to tears, as you can imagine. And she was in tears because this was very fresh. It had been less than 5 years. And she looked me in my face, y'all, and she said, I know that you've joined the Human Rights Campaign. I know that you're an ally. Um, would you consider speaking for my child? And
Wow.
it was like, honestly, like taking a bullet. I just felt it in my stomach. And it was in that moment that I realized that's what I was meant to do. That's why people asked me to join this local steering committee, this local board. That's why, as a woman who uh, is, heterosexual um, and has empathy for all the people around me and is supportive of LGBTQI plus people, I knew in that moment that that was my call to action. And it was from Judy Shepard. And I knew in that moment that every single day for the rest of my life, I was going to speak for Matthew. And that is how it got started. And over the years, we accomplished quite a few things, right? We worked as an organization to repeal Don't Ask, Don't Tell. I was on the ground fighting and lobbying so many hours I can't even imagine, meeting with politicians that wouldn't even come to the door. They wouldn't even speak to me. They wouldn't look me in my face. I had to send emails. I had to make phone calls because they deigned to give me time, right? To support our service members that were protecting us. Um, we passed, gay marriage federally. But that was after strategically fighting for marriage equality state by state. Because if you go back and you think about it, that was the original strategy, right? We were going to go state by state and we were going to fight our way through it. And then the federal legislation was passed, thank goodness. Um, and so on and so on. So many accomplishments, in our local state, public accommodations for LGBTQ people, to make sure that Soleil and, anyone who identifies is not going to be discriminated against when they go to rent a home or they go to buy a home or they go to enter, any kind of public space, that there's treated with the dignity and respect that they're supposed to, or at least have equal access. Um, and all of the other major accomplishments that happened at that time, many of them now, as you know, being rolled back.
Yeah.
One
Thanks for
thing
sharing.
that sorry, I just wanted to say one thing that really, stuck out to me during that whole thing. Story that you gave was specifically when you talked about empathy. And I think that's true, that you do have to have that empathy. And it's interesting because I think subconsciously, like even so before I knew about you, before you came on the show, actually, I even asked Soleil, I asked, are you a part of the LGBT community? Because I think subconsciously, I just assumed that maybe you would have been. And the empathy part that you talked about, it's true. Just because you're an ally doesn't even necessarily mean you're a part of the community, but it just means being supportive of the community and being willing to fight for those people with the stories, like you talked about that young man. So I just think that that was a powerful story that you shared. And
Thank you.
very good.
Thank you. And just to wrap that story up, because I think it's so incredibly powerful. I was giving a speech for the Human Rights Campaign in Washington, D.C., and I was on stage and I was talking about my life and my journey, right? And which allyship requires, for you to get out of self, get away from your ego and center other people, which is, I think, what's so hard for the majority of people. But anyway, I was telling my story, and a former president of the Human Rights Campaign walked in. And I was in Washington, D.C., actually for that speech, but also for my very first national board meeting. And I was telling the story, and he walked in, the former president. His name is Joe Salmonese. And I saw him, and I go, "Oh my God, Joe Salmonese is in the room, y'all! He's here!" And everyone clapped. And I, in a moment, in true Latoya fashion, I came off my script, and I said, "Joe, did I ever tell you why I got involved with the Human Rights Campaign and how this whole thing started?" And he said, "No, I didn't know." And I said, "Remind me later to tell you." And he said, "No." And he said really loud in the audience, "Tell me now, tell everyone," right? And I said, "Okay." So I told a very brief version of the story that I told you about the transformative moment with Judy Shepard. And what I did not know was that Judy Shepard was in the room. Now, mind you, I hadn't seen her in 20 years. So I hadn't seen her since that night at that dinner. I just continued to do the work, right? And so when I finished my speech, I got off the stage and I turned to my right, and standing at the end of the platform with her arms open in tears was Judy Shepard. And I walked down and I, collapsed really into her arms. And we had a moment where it was like, just surprise, because neither one of us had seen each other in 20 years. And she was holding me and she was kind of rocking like a mother does, right?
Mhm.
And she said, I forgot. I was in such trauma. I forgot about you. And all this time, you never forgot about Matthew. And it was just such a beautiful moment for me that crystallized the power of our stories,
Yeah.
the power of our authentic storytelling, and the impact that that can have on people without you even knowing. And then she said to me the next day, I walked into my first board meeting. You go to these board meetings. It's a very big deal. They have like these very fancy nameplates and, iPads with your agendas and all the things on it. And so I'm sitting there at this super intimidated, right? So I sit at this table and it says Latoya Holman, National Board of Directors, Human Rights Campaign Foundation. And I was so proud to see that. And when I looked to my right, it said Judy Shepard, Human Rights, Board of Directors, Human Rights Campaign Foundation. And she
Wow.
sat down next to me and she said, I made sure that they moved my seating next to yours because you and I are now friends. And the full circle moment of that, right? That over 20 years could pass and a woman's story about her child would have such an impact on my soul, on my heart, that would trigger empathy in a way that is that significant and long lasting, that we would not see each other for 20 years. And when we did meet, we were serving the human rights campaign at the highest level.
Yeah.
Awesome. I
Yeah.
think we're being joined by one of our other hosts who's a little late.
Oh,
Welcome,
hi.
Ella.
Hello.
Yes.
This is
Hello, hello.
Latoya.
Hi, Latoya. I didn't catch all of it, but what I did catch, it's a very, very fascinating story about
Thank you.
perseverance, overcoming all sorts of like obstacles. It's very inspiring. Um,
Thank you.
the type of day that I had today, I'm thinking, oh, I had such a rough day. I listened to your story. It's like, you know what? I really didn't have that bad of a day.
That's right. That's
It
right.
just puts a whole lot of things in perspective. And so you actually are inspiring people in ways where you kind of put the whole world into perspective. The little belly aching and stuff that we go through day to day.
Yeah.
It seems like it's just like nothing. It's like if you can overcome the type of things that you've overcome, I can overcome like a little, blip on my radar. So thank you
Yeah.
for reminding me about what's truly important.
You're welcome. And I would encourage everyone on this, all the hosts on the call. I would encourage all of your listeners to remember it just takes that one small action, right? It doesn't have to be that you're automatically serving on 5 boards. Like that is not the way that this goes. What actually happens is a moment of empathy and kindness and the willingness to do that one thing. Maybe it's walking in the MLK March. Maybe it's coming to the Public Education Foundation Teacher Super Store and stuffing a box of school supplies for kids. Maybe it's showing up at the Transgender Day of Visibility and listening to someone's story. It could be the smallest of actions, but you never know what that small action is going to trigger. Number one, in terms of other people wanting to do things, but you never know what that one action is going to mean to someone in the room. And I've had, Soleil knows, like I will go to events and people will come up to me and say, you saved my life, or I my life changed because of a conversation that I saw you have. And I by all means don't think this is about me. I think this is about the vulnerability and the bravery to be vulnerable and speak your truth in spaces where people could judge, or, people could make assumptions. Like you said, Prince, like, is she LGBTQ? People assume I'm a lesbian all the time. I don't care. I really don't care if that's, it's not an insult to me, number one.
Mhm.
So whether it's accurate or not, it doesn't matter to me. I'm willing to step into these spaces because I understand my truth, and my what connects with my spirit is lifting up and connecting communities and making sure that people feel loved and valued. So,
Latoya, I know you have a hard out in about 10 minutes. I just want to say I appreciate two things, and it goes into my next question. We sort of had a discussion before the show via text, sort of about the example you just made about going into an LGBT space, people thinking you're lesbian when you're not, and there was a little back and forth on that because people may be insecure. They don't want
yeah,
to have people think that they're LGBT when
right.
they really it's really not an issue. And then the second thing, and this goes into my question, you mentioned empathy. Um, do you have to understand to be an ally?
Mm,
Like, I'm transgender, and we've been friends for a number of years.
right,
You've come to events, and you know a bit about my story, and heard me speak and things like that. But do
right,
you need to understand all the nuances of transgenderism? It's not real word, but
right,
do you need to know the nuances of that to be an ally?
right. I'm going to keep it 100 with you.
I know you will.
No, you don't. You really do not need to know the intricacies about someone's biology, about where they are in transition, where they are, to use your term, in their transgenderism. What you need to know is that we're talking about humanity. We're talking about people who have had probably some of the similar journeys that you've had, struggled in school, struggled with, attendance, maybe had addiction in their family, maybe they struggled with their weight, maybe they celebrate and have music in common with you. We're talking about humanity. And we're talking about the fact that people are worthy and of value because they exist. It doesn't matter how they exist. It doesn't matter what they look like as they exist. It doesn't matter what their health condition is. It doesn't matter what their military service is or is not. It's just humanity. And I say that when I say I'm going to keep it 100, it's because I don't know where you are, Soleil, biologically. I've never asked you that.
Hmm.
I have no idea, surgery, non surgery. I know a little bit about your journey because I've heard you speak about it. But when I befriended you and when I aligned and called you my sister, it was because simply you're human spirit. And I think we've got to stop taking a look at everyone's labels and taking a look at how others may identify them, or taking a look at what bucket or category they're in. And I think we need to look at people as humans and connect with humanity. So no, you don't need to know everything about someone's biology, or the state of their transition, or if they have always been bisexual and now they're a lesbian, or when they came out. None of those things, they're relevant as they are as someone wants to share those things with you in a way of connecting. But what we need to do is align as humans and want what's best and safe and well for humans. And I think somehow we freaking lost that in the world around us now. I think we've become so comfortable separating, segregating ourselves from people based on labels. And I think that is really at the core of a lot of this fear and listening to and being judged by the labels that people put on you.
Mhm. Eric, I think you have a statement.
Yeah, just real quick, a lot of the things that you're saying, I often, tell Soleil this. I knew very little, if anything, about the LBGTQ movement.
Hmm.
Really, have been educated. It's kind of changed my perspective on how I view people.
Yeah,
I view people now, like you've been saying, you've said so many times, as a human being. A
right.
good human being is a good human being, regardless of how they want to identify or what they gender are.
Or who
So,
they go to bed with,
yep, or
or
they go to bed, which
none
is
of our
totally none of my
business.
business. You're
That's right.
absolutely right. I was just about to say that. And like Soleil, is a great person. Princeton, great person. You
Right.
seem like that you're a great person. It's how you treat me as a human. As long as you're treating me, you know, as long as you're treating me with respect, what you do is totally your business. But the one thing that I will say is that I won't tolerate somebody persecuting somebody because of the choices that they make. That's
That's right.
their business.
That's right.
Mhm.
That's right. And that's where we get into advocacy, right? And allyship can evolve into advocacy work. I've been involved with the HRC for so many years now that I'm knee deep in advocacy, because if I see anyone being persecuted or being treated with the inequities that we're seeing now in the United States of America, you're going to hear from me. All you got to do is give me a chance to share some words, and I've got that. There's still over 20 states in this country where you can get married in the morning and lose your job by the end of the day as soon as someone finds out that you're LGBTQ. And even if they don't verify that you actually are, but they make an assumption, they can assume that you are. They can fire you, take your livelihood from you, and you will have no legal recourse. How is that right in this year of 2025 in the United States of America? And so sometimes allyship will take you along the pathway to advocacy. And that's where I land now at this point, but it depends on where people fall on the journey.
Latoya, real quick, I know we only have a few more minutes with you.
Yeah.
So, two more questions left. One is, what are some practical things people can do to be an ally to a community? How do they prevent themselves from being performative
Mm,
with their allyship? And then I
yeah.
have one more question after that.
Yeah. I think one of the first things I would say is, if you are just posting something or you're wearing a shirt, but you're not willing to back up whatever that content is in real life, in a statement, in a conversation, there's no real action behind what you're showing to the world, and you're willing to hide behind whatever that piece is. One of the most common things that I see, Soleil, is people will post some sort of equal sign or HRC sign on their social media, um, and yet they actually do no work towards the journey to equality. They're not willing to say anything about inequalities when they see it, but they're real quick to post about it, right? And so I think those are simple things. If you are willing to show something, and you're willing to go to something, you need to be willing to back it up. And one of the simplest things that people can do is just get educated. That takes some sort of a performative action, and that turns it into real allyship. You're going to take your own personal time, and I'm going to learn about what's going on in this world. I'm going to open my eyes, and I'm going to create a level of awareness of the truth that was not there before. And hopefully you become more confident, and then you want to speak about it, right? Then you want to have a conversation with somebody about it. I think, in this time, people are asking the question, Soleil, we ask this question all the time with HRC, what does resistance look like, right? What is resistance now? I think resistance is awareness. I think resistance is do not close your eyes to it. I'm not saying you have to watch the news all day, every day, but give it a 5-10 minute watch and pay attention to what's going on around you. And so I think allyship is similar in that to stay out of a performative realm of allyship, you really need to open yourself up to knowledge, and you need to face the hard things to create a level of awareness that was not there before. And then it will continue to expand from there.
Wow, that's awesome. I thank you for being on the show. My last question is, how is allyship rewarding to you?
Mm. Listen, I believe that we're here for about this long. And I believe that our purpose, one of the main purposes for us being here, is to connect to other people and to love and be loved by other people. And I cannot begin to explain to you the gift of allyship when you give that to another human being, that level of empathy, that you making sure that other person knows that they are worthy just because of their existence. And you help make someone else feel accepted and loved and supported. You get that in return. You get that in return tenfold. And so for me, allyship has I've received that love in return. I have so many people in my life as a result of my allyship. Judy Shepard, one of them, you Soleil, another, the steering committee of the Human Rights Campaign. They're like my family. And so, in alignment with marginalized groups of people, I have received love. I've received love. And I don't know that you can quantify that.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, we definitely need to do a part two because
Okay.
I had a lot of questions, but we can only get to a few of them, and I know the guys had questions as well. But thank you so much, my friend, my sister girl.
You're welcome,
And
sister.
I'll
You
see
are
you in the
welcome.
morning.
My sister. What was
Yeah.
that?
I said I'll see you in the morning for our morning Zoom.
That's right. We do affirmations every morning at 7:55. I will see you there.
All right.
Yeah, thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
and definitely need a part two because I definitely want to learn more about you and continue to hear your story more and to hear this story more. So definitely need to go do a part two.
It would be my pleasure. So
And
nice to
keep
meet you.
smiling. Keep smiling.
Okay.
Okay. I promise. I promise.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Oh, that was awesome.
Yes,
That was
it
really
is.
great. That was really insightful. Actually, okay, I do have one more question. She was running short on time, so I didn't want to like keep her or anything, but I'll just ask you, Soleil. So one thing, especially in that last kind of question that you asked her that she brought up was people posting on like social media, I guess different things, but not actually taking action. So do you feel, Soleil, that you can be an ally, but not like, let's say I don't go to any meetups or I don't necessarily reach out to any groups, but I'm just accepting, of that community. Am I still an ally, or do you feel like you have to be involved in things to be an ally?
So it's a little tricky when you think about what marginalized group are you talking about. So my community, transgender people, our rights are being taken away.
Mm-hmm.
Literally. In Iowa, they already passed a bill that companies can discriminate against you and fire you for being trans. Rental places, landlords can choose not to rent to you for being trans. So we already have a high rate of homelessness in our community. We have a high rate of unemployed people in our community. So that's just one state, and other states are trying to do that. Texas, for example, makes it illegal, or they want to make it illegal to be transgender. You know, it's like Prince. You can't stop being black. You're black. I'm
Yeah.
transgender. This is who I am. I can't stop being trans, right? And that's a state that's trying to make it illegal and put you in jail. So I would say to people who don't want to do something, you know, repost something I might post, who don't want to come to an event to support me, like you're not aligning. She kind of touched on it earlier in one of the questions. You're not aligning like, oh, I'm gay, I'm this, I'm that. No, you're supporting me, or you're supporting that person. And who cares if somebody thinks you're gay or lesbian or whatever? Like you're supporting somebody, or you're supporting a cause. Should mean more. So I do struggle, you know, if in our chat earlier, and I don't know, Prince, if you read through it between me and James, but you know, you have to look at your heart. If you say you're an ally, you have to look at your heart and answer like, okay, why am I not going to something? This past week, Monday, was Trans Day of Visibility. It's one of the biggest days of the year for transgender people, celebrating our visibility. And I made posts on social media about the different events over the weekend, and I didn't see many folk. I saw 3 people that I personally invited through social media. I know everybody in Las Vegas. I mean, not literally, but like, you know, just the circles that I'm in, I know a lot of people. So maybe people had to work, maybe this, maybe that. There could be any number of excuses. But certainly there are some people that just didn't come because they just didn't want to be aligned or associated with. And so I have to question, like, well, are you really an ally? When you say you support me, do you really support me if you're concerned about what people may think about you going into a gay bar or going into the LGBT center, which was another event? Like, so I struggle with that. Simply, I would say this, simply saying that you support me at this point, knowing what's going on in my world, is not enough. You know, her and I, and I'll end it here. Her and I, we get together every morning, 7:55, like she said, affirmations. You know why that came up? Because I sat there in front of her in February, bawling my eyes out about what's going on in my world. And she decided one day in February, we're going to do this every day. I'm going to affirm you every day for the last month and a half. That's allyship. That's somebody that heard me, saw me crying, and knew that I needed to hear I'm loved. I'm worthy. I'm doing amazing. You're doing great. Today, this morning, we got together. This weekend, I won an award for Women's History Month by one organization. And then the next day, I was named Trans Icon by another organization.
Wow.
But this morning,
congratulations.
Thank you. This morning, she's like, you need to celebrate yourself. Because I wasn't. Like, yes, I won these awards. I have great pictures, I get great memories. And then it's like the last couple of days, okay. But no, she's like, no, you need to celebrate yourself. And I did. Like I after we got off the call, I thought about it. I was like, yeah, I do. We're only here on this earth for a short time. And if I accomplish something, I need to celebrate myself in the moment. That's allyship. She saw something, she heard something. Again, she doesn't know the ins and out of being transgender. She doesn't know everything I go through. But having one conversation when I did say something, she responded. And we've been doing this for the last month and a half. And so when somebody says, okay, I can't share this because, for whatever reason, like somebody may say something or whatever, then you're not an ally to me, especially during these times. I might have let that go 5 years ago, 8 years ago, but like during these times, I've made it clear what some of my fears are and what my thoughts are. And so if you know that, and I'm not asking you to be an activist and preaching and walking in parades and marching. I posted something about an hour ago on Facebook. We're being attacked by the LGBT community. There was a post that I saw where a gay white man wanted to separate lesbians, gays, and bisexuals from transsexuals or transgender. This is what I'm going through. My own community, right? And so maybe I should go to it now. How many likes does this have? It has 4.
Now, was that someone actually in the community or someone trying to divide the community?
He's a gay man.
Okay.
He's full-blown gay, and I think he's married as well.
Okay. I'm sorry, is it the post where it's got like the 4, I guess, like cartoon-ish type characters?
4 cartoonish. There's 2.
Say Girls Like Us.
Yeah, Girls Like
Pretty
Us.
face. Okay. Yep, that's it.
Yeah. So like, if you know that this is the type of stuff I'm going through from one political party, even I'm going on a rant here, but okay. Anyway, even Democrats are starting to pull back like some of their support, of transgender people, because we're a political pawn. Some Democrats think they lost the election because of transgender people. So we're getting it from all sides, and we're the smallest, like, marginalized group.
Right.
There's only 1.5 million of us out of 400 million in this country.
Yeah, maybe a little more, but yet it's less than 1%.
Yeah, so
I think it's less than 0.5%.
and then we have gay people even like, no, we're not going to associate. So anyway, I'll end it there. Just with if people see this, what does it hurt to just simply like a post or retweet or repost something? Because here's the thing, and I know I said this twice before, but I'll stop after this. I have about 300 people, maybe 400 people on my Facebook page. For the most part, those people accept me, and yeah, they support me, right? So when I post something, it doesn't really mean anything for them because they already know. It's people like Eric, people like James, Prince. You and I aren't friends on there, but James, Eric, your few hundred, your few thousand friends, when you post that to people who may not have ever met a transgender person before, they have misconceptions about trans people. That's where the value is in just simply reposting something, because now my voice goes out to more people. And like Eric's friend, you know, one of, oh, you're friends with a transgender person? You support a trans person? And then that could start a conversation. Well, yeah, we're friends. We do this podcast together. I'm going to Vegas in a couple of weeks. I'm going to see her. No, I don't. I don't know all the ins and outs about being transgender or whatever. But yeah, I support her. Then that person may go tell somebody, or that might change their perspective on what trans people are and all about. And then that can just change everything. It still blows my mind how many people just think, you know, trans people are just terrible people. Like we're going into bathrooms and doing things to kids when that's not true at all. But you see in the last couple weeks, if you watch the news, a former spiritual advisor to our current president, he got busted for something. A Republican senator from Minnesota, he got busted for stuff. It's not the trans people. But people won't know that, and they won't know it hearing it from me, because when I share it to my friends, to my Instagram, those are people who already know because they support me. But it's your friends who probably don't know. So sorry, I went on a
No,
dialogue
hey,
here.
No,
But
that's
I
okay.
get it.
And
Yeah, I get
and
it.
I just want to say one thing, and I don't want Mr. Consistency to jump through the screen and let me know
No,
about the time. But
you're fine.
at the end of the day, it's a human rights issue. To just kind of put it like in a, if we had to put it like in, I guess in a box, it's a human rights issue. Your right as a human being is to live your life the way that you see fit. As long as you're not causing any harm to anybody, as long as you're not doing anything illegal, we really shouldn't care what you do in your personal life, how you want to display yourself in public. As long as you're displaying yourself in a respectable way, then hey, you know, if you identify as whatever, it really shouldn't matter. At the end of the day, you're a human being and you're supposed to be treated as such. And once we all start realizing that, then we will be in a place where I thought that we were going to be, because the last 4 years everything seemed like that it was starting to even out. It didn't seem like it was such a abnormal thing to see transgender couples, you know, that were married. Now within the last like what 100 days or so, it seems like that all of the work that had been done has just been undone, and I am so sorry for you. But eventually we'll get back there. It's unfortunately everything has its cycle. Right now we're in a cycle of people are following a certain person. They want to stay in a certain person's good graces. So whether they feel it's wrong or not, if it's going to benefit them financially, they're just rolling with the punches. But I'm almost certain that once this 4 year cycle is done, things are going to be somewhat back to normal. Probably never will be the way it was before, but things are even out. Just keep your
Hopefully,
head
I
up,
don't want to
Soleil.
jump to conclusions.
I don't want to jump to conclusions either. That's why I said hopefully, but Soleil, keep your head up. Like I told you before, um, the journey that you've had, a lot of people unfortunately took their lives because of the not, you know, not having support, and the things that are available now as far as the support system wasn't available even when you know, first start to transition. So you know, you've got to continue to set an example, because you don't know how many lives you probably have saved by you stepping to the forefront. I know you being a leader kind of happened. It wasn't something that you were inspiring to do, but because you were brave enough to take action, one of the first people to take action, saved a lot of lives. So you please keep that in mind.
mhm. All right. Any other questions on that, or
That's all I had, and I really appreciate it. You have a great answer.
thank you. I know it was long, but a lot of that just came out of me.
Yeah, that's okay.
Real quick, I do want to talk about the Final Four. We got Florida versus Auburn, Houston versus Duke. Have y'all watched the tournament? Has it been as good as it has been in previous years?
So for me, I've never been a huge, especially for some reason, men's college basketball person, even though I'm a huge basketball fan. But I usually like I'll kind of watch one team or whoever has the big name, and I'll watch them. Of course, that was Cooper this year, flag. So I have been keeping up with Duke, and I mean they're the real deal. I think you've seen that even when Cooper has off nights, when he's not at his A game, which he had one game against I can't remember who, he did go crazy, but it's not like he's going crazy every single game, and they still find a way to win. So they have a lot of good players on that team outside of just Cooper. Knipple, I think, is the other guy's name too, and he's probably going to be in the league as well. So I haven't seen much of the other teams, but I'd say it's going to be hard for Duke to lose with how they're looking, to me at least. That's who my money's on to win it all.
Eric, have you been watching it?
Yeah, man, I was looking at Auburn and the way they cooked Michigan and Michigan State. Like Auburn's got like a solid team. The way that they play defense, I think if Auburn plays Duke, I wouldn't be surprised if Auburn won it. I'm figuring Duke will win, but it would not surprise me if Auburn wind up winning if they got to the final two.
All right, cool. I have Houston winning it all, so they're still in it. But so Prince has Duke, Eric has Auburn.
Yep. I wonder who James has.
I forgot. Maybe Duke.
I think he put it in the chat. I'll have to see.
Yeah.
What about the women's side? Did you guys keep up with that at all?
No, unfortunately, I hadn't. I've been working so much lately. I haven't had a chance to catch all of the women's games. Who's in the Final Four for the ladies?
Well, South Carolina for sure.
Yeah, definitely South Carolina.
UCLA maybe.
Is Connecticut in there?
I think Paige is
Really?
still in there, right?
No, UConn won. UConn's in it, I think.
Okay. UConn, because they usually have a pretty solid team, so I wouldn't be surprised if UConn.
So it's Texas versus South Carolina, UConn versus UCLA. UCLA is legit.
That's going to be a good game. UConn,
UCLA is legit.
Really good game.
I was upset about what happened to Juju. I wanted to see.
Yeah, poor thing.
I want to see her ball out.
She's going to be out for a year. We're not going to see her for a while.
Ooh.
Yeah, she had a ACL, I think.
Yeah, oh my ACLs goodness. Are no joke.
Nope. So,
well,
all right, jump right into spitballing and close this out.
I'll give you the stage. Here you are.
All right, so this spitballing actually kind of goes in a little bit in a way with the subject matter that we talked about tonight. But I've noticed this trend on TikTok and other social medias where a guy may be eating a hot dog or a popsicle or something, and then he immediately has to say, pause. Or a guy might be talking to his friend and say, let me go outside and grab the balls from the front yard. And it's like, no homo, pause. Dude, like nobody cares about your sexuality. We really don't. And if you're secure in yourself, we know that you're heterosexual. Bravo. You don't have to say pause. You don't have to say no homo. It's funny, but like there's some reality to it that just doesn't make sense. It shows the immaturity of men. It's probably something I would have did like when I was 8 years old. Now that I'm in my 40s, no, that's stupid. Like I'm secure in who I am. So be secure in who you are. Eat that hot dog. Eat it slowly if you have to. Nobody's going to think anything about your sexuality just because you eat a hot dog. Go out and get all the balls in your front yard. Nobody's going to be watching you and thinking, how dare he go get balls? He must be, no, you're not gay. So don't be afraid of it. And don't be afraid if people label you as such. Be secure in who you are. That's my spitballing for this week.
The
Yeah.
spitball was so good, I accidentally removed you from the entire stage, not just exit the solo layout. But
I don't know what that means.
I accidentally, I meant to take it off of, I had you, on the solo layout, but it was a little error. I accidentally moved you to the back of the stage for a second. But I brought you back real quick, so you probably didn't even notice.
No, I didn't know what was going on. Cool.
But
Yeah,
that
up
was
until
cool.
you said something, now she knows.
Yeah, I shouldn't have said anything. I should have just been like,
Yeah,
oh, no, nothing
I wouldn't
happened.
have known. Well, good
Cool.
show. Good show.
All right. Well, thanks, everyone. I think that's all we got. And as Mr. Consistency, I didn't even have to get on anyone. Hey, we're getting out of here a little early. So
I stretched it out for you. I stretched it out with that one answer.
Right. Well, hey, you've heard it. It's been from our mouths to your ears. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Peace.
All right, have a good night.